What's going on, guys? Welcome back to #AskGSM here today for February 8th, 2017. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Every single freaking Wednesday here in the show, I answer your questions from the Facebook, from the Twitter, and even from right here on the YouTube. Just send in your questions by finding me on Twitter, tweeting me with the #AskGSM at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights or on this very video. We got to speed it up. I only have about 30-40 minutes here today before I head off to class, so I know the episodes have been shorter as of late, but nevertheless, the quality of the questions remains the same as a result of you amazing folks. Raw was good this week. SmackDown was good. I thought 205 Live stole the week. Shout out to @RebornAgainJohn for being at the shows. He took some awesome pictures. Just want to give a shout out to him real quick. He's great. I hope he had a fun time at the show. The show was amazing last night. And SmackDown, 205 Live, whatever. So anyway, like I said, without further ado, let's get to your questions. Emmanuel A. from YouTube. Could the Hardcore Holly versus Brock Lesnar match from the Royal Rumble 2004 have been planned better? In Holly's autobiography, he claims WWE's efforts to build him up as a threat were a little, too late. Holly claims that he was what the WWE made him, and there was never enough dedication to make him anything more than a good hand, and fans knew that. He got wins over A-Train and Big Show to build credibility, but everyone beat those guys anyway. Holly does say that he and Lesnar thoroughly planned out a 15-minute match where Lesnar was willing to make him look strong, but it got tarnished when Triple H and Shawn Michaels wanted more time for their last man standing match and cut their match in half as a result. Do you think Triple H and Shawn Michaels absorbing their time was fair? That does not surprise me at all that Triple H and Shawn Michaels would do that. They had the influence at the time. They have it today. Not that either of them are wrestling on a regular basis as they were in 2004, but hearing that story does not surprise me in the slightest. First time I heard it, does not surprise me. With the Holly and Lesnar program, I really didn't have much of a problem with Lesnar squashing Holly in like 4 or 5 minutes, whatever the hell it was. First of all, the championship matches at these pay-per-views do not sell the Rumble pay-per-view. The Rumble match sells the show. The Rumble match that year was amazing. Was that the same year they did Angle Benoit? No, that was 2003 for the WWE Championship. I thought that Triple H Michaels match was great. It might have been just as good with a couple minutes shaved off. But was it wrong of them to absorb the in-ring time of Holly and Lesnar? Sure, but at the same time, it wasn't like, oh my God, Holly was an up-and-coming star. I don't know. I just never really saw Hardcore Holly as like a top guy. It's not like, oh man, that guy never went anywhere. He could have been so much more. Not that he wasn't given opportunities, because he really wasn't, but I don't know. I'm not really sure. There's just nothing really about Holly stood out to me as being a top guy. Maybe a mid-card guy, like Intercontinental Champion level. I could have seen that. But making him look strong against Lesnar, they had regardless of whether he had a 15-minute match against Lesnar or a 5-minute match, it really would not made that much of a difference in making Holly out to be a star. He was not in the twilight of his career at that point, but he was closer to the end than the beginning, and they really had no plans to make him a main eventer anyway. It was the road to WrestleMania. I don't even think he was on the WrestleMania card that year at WrestleMania 20. I might be mistaken, and if he was, it must have been like a fucking tag team match or something, because I know he wasn't doing anything of note. But the whole reason why they did that match was to kind of blow off the angle between Holly and Lesnar. They had been building up the feud for a few months, dating back to Survivor Series, but of course Lesnar, not intentionally, but legitimately broke the neck of Hardcore Holly by accident in the fall of 2002. So they wanted to play off that real life history, that real life tension, and kind of go full circle with it. And they needed a match for the Rumble. It was a fun filler match for Lesnar. And that's basically what it was. It was never really meant to be anything more than that. So I can't say I'm surprised by the Michaels Triple H story, but I can't really say I blame them either, because I feel like whether it was a 5-minute match or 15-minute match, even if Lesnar was, made out Holly to look strong in defeat, I really do not think he would have had like a star-making performance where they would have made him like a world champion after that. Next set of questions come from Brandon A., also from YouTube. Excluding Nakamura and Bobby Roode, what entrance themes are your favorite in WWE right now? One main roster, one women's wrestler, one NXT, and one cruiserweight. For the main roster, I got a bunch. I don't know if there's one that stands out as my favorite, just because I have a lot of different favorites. It's hard to say. I mean, it must be a tie between... I love Jericho's. I've always said that. I love Jericho's. Jericho, Miz's I've always enjoyed. Seth Rollins, but I gotta say KO's is up there. Kevin Owens. And if I had, like, gun to head, had to pick just one, AJ Styles. Yup, no, they don't want none. They don't want none. Just an amazing thing that captivated me from the moment that I first heard it at the Rumble in 2016. So I got to go with that for the main roster. Women's wrestler? Love Alexa Bliss, but I gotta go Bayley. I don't know, there's just something about Bayley's theme that when you listen to it, you like feel happy. Like it like brings out happiness from within you. It's just so incredible. Bayley's theme does that to you. It's just fucking infectious. And, you know, Alexa Bliss's theme is great too, so I'll put that one up there as well. NXT, I mean, like you said, I mean, no Nakamura, no Bobby Roode. Next up, I was looking through the roster. I would gotta go. DIY's got a good theme. I would say they have an underrated theme, but I gotta go. No way, Jose. Just so fucking infectious. And for Cruiserweight, this one's pretty much an easy one for me. Cedric Alexander has such a beast boss theme song. I love his entrance theme. So again, AJ Styles for the main roster. Bayley and Bliss kind of tied for the women's. No Way Jose for NXT, excluding Nakamura and Bobby Roode, as you said. And for the Cruiserweights, Cedric Alexander. His second question, Blue Thunderbomb or Deep Six? Blue Thunderbomb. I think both moves are great. Baron Corbin does that Deep Six really well. Way better. I mean, I love Wade Barrett, but way better than Wade Barrett used to do as the Winds of Change. But he used to do it well, but Baron Corbin does it like, I don't know if he does another rotation or what, but he executes it really well. Maybe it's just his size. I'm not really sure. I mean, Barrett was tall too, but I don't know. Just the intensity and the emphasis he puts on that Deep Six looks great, but gotta go Blue Thunderbomb because it looks like a move that could put you down, as does the Deep Six, I feel. But when Sami Zayn does that Blue Thunderbomb, it just like, wow, the match could have ended right there. Like, that's how great that move looked. So I gotta go Blue Thunderbomb, although it is close, though. His third question, this was a good one. What is the cheesiest WWE storyline that you have still thoroughly enjoyed, even though it was cheesy? I couldn't really think of one off the bat. I don't know if it really applies, and probably not, but Punk and Taker from 2013, when it was over like Paul Bearer's urn and shit, I don't know if it was cheesy as much as it was like controversial or polarizing, but I still enjoyed it. I think had Paul Bearer not died, not saying it was a good thing that he died, but I don't know what the fuck they would have done with that feud had Paul Bearer not legitimately passed away. So I enjoyed that feud. I don't really know of any cheesy storylines in recent memory like love triangles. Like, I was thinking of, like, AJ Lee and Punk and Bryan and Kane. I don't know if that was really cheesy back in 2012, because I think it was pretty much critically acclaimed by anyone who watched it. But I enjoyed that storyline. That's considered cheesy, I guess. Anything with, like, Bryan and AJ in 2012, Daniel Bryan and AJ Lee, was awesome with the whole love angle they did throughout the year in 2012. So I thought I would put that up there. And I don't know whether it's cheesy, but I guess it's worth mentioning. His next question, in your opinion, what is the most hilarious promo ever? That's a very good question. Again, very subjective. I could say a Santino promo is the funniest ever. I'm not going to say that, but I'm just saying this is very subjective. For me personally, anything involving The Rock, making fun of the Big Show, Kane, Rikishi, an impersonation that RJ fucking nails every single time. Got to give him props to that. Shout out to Mr. Marceau. For me, with The Rock, just the early goings of the promo. And I got to give credit to Jerry Lawler, too. When Goldberg debuted, again, I know RJ knows what I'm talking about. The night Goldberg debuted back in 2003, the night after WrestleMania 19, when he's like, I'm leaving the WWE, The Rock's going to be gone. And Jerry Lawler on commentary is like, oh, he's going to leave, JR, he's going to take off, or whatever, with his high-pitched, like, Mickey Mouse voice. It was so fucking funny. Either that, or a couple weeks earlier, to that, a couple weeks prior to that, when The Rock turned heel on the Toronto crowd. Oh, yay, he's cheering our name. Toronto, he said Toronto. Like, that promo, is for as many times as I watch it, never ceases to entertain me. Punk was involved in a few funny promos, I thought, back in the day. So, but I got to go with the Rock Toronto one. Again, it's very subjective. Daniel Bryan and Kane, any promo, any segment they were involved in, like the anger management shit with Dr. Shelby was fucking great. The diner scene they were a part of was hilarious with Mae Young. Diagrams. That always gets me every time too. But I gotta go with the Rock Toronto from 2003 promo. And his last question here. And of course, your favorite question, what's next for Bray Wyatt? Shout out to Brandon for bringing back the old ever-asked question of what's next for Bray Wyatt. As anyone who has listened to this show for any stretch of time knows, that is my least favorite question. So Brandon ironically asking that. But in all seriousness, I do think he wins the WWE Championship on Sunday to set up the rumored and predictable match of him and Orton at Mania, which is not the worst thing. I still say that Styles should win the belt back. To set up him and Orton, because I think Wyatt will become champion eventually. If they're going to have him win on Sunday, there's going to be another opportunity at some point, just because he's been doing so well recently with the whole Orton feud and everything else, that he should become champion at some point in the near future, even if it's after WrestleMania. But in all seriousness, I do believe Bray Wyatt will win the title on Sunday. I do believe that is what's next for Bray Wyatt. And if not, if he doesn't face Orton at Mania for the belt, which I don't think he should, but he probably will, I think him and Harper would be just as good. I mean, they built up that feud really, really well lately. Harper's getting over as a singles babyface, so they're giving him a lot of love in like the main event matches and getting the rub from John Cena. Like that's a big thing. That's a major thing. So I would be totally content with that. But I do believe he does win the WWE Championship at Elimination Chamber. Amanda 450 Splash, couple questions here. First one being, I was watching Survivor Series back and noticed that whichever team entered first for the Raw versus SmackDown teams ended up winning. Who do you think, or do you think that WWE did that on purpose? No, I don't think so. There were only 3 Raw and SmackDown matches, so the fact they did it for all 3 was pure coincidence. But I would not have picked that up. I was going to ask you why you watched that show back, just because I would never watch Survivor Series back in full. I barely could get through it the first time when I watched it with Jason a couple months ago. I think he can attest to that too. Very long show, but I know you were there, so I'm sure you enjoyed it. It was not a terrible show. It was not the worst pay-per-view of the year, and it had its moments, of course. That big Raw and SmackDown match was incredible. I would watch that match back. The entire show, not so much. Amanda's next question. Do you see anyone in NXT that could legitimately main event WrestleMania within the next 5 years, not including Joe? I mean, Joe's on Raw anyway, so I don't really think I would have said him regardless, but obviously Nakamura. I don't know about anyone else in NXT right now. Maybe Bobby Roode. Like, Bobby Roode, maybe I could see for, like, on a SmackDown World title match, maybe down the line, because he's a star. But Nakamura, he should have been in the main event of WrestleMania yesterday. I mean, I know he's doing and paying his dues in NXT and all that other shit. You know, doing his first year rookie stuff and whatever else they want to call it in WWE and NXT, and kind of learning the ropes, which is for the best because he knows like very little English and his promos still are really not that good. So I think the time in NXT has definitely benefited him and the audience, and kind of getting to know him and familiarizing themselves with him and stuff. So I don't think it was like for the worst that he went to NXT. But anyway, Nakamura, I do think when he gets called up, which I would assume might be the night after WrestleMania this year, I could guess, if he loses. Now that he's no longer NXT champion, I mean, I guess he could face Roode at TakeOver Orlando. But I'm thinking they do Chris Hero and Nakamura in Orlando. Nakamura loses, goes to Raw or SmackDown, you know, the next night or on, you know, that week or whatever, the following week. Her next question, favorite and least favorite WrestleMania opening matches. Very good question. I think I've answered this before, but at any rate, not including the pre-show, she said. So, favorite, again, it's hard to say anything that I was not a fan for, though I did enjoy Eddie and Ray from WrestleMania 21, I think it was. That was a great match. Owen and Brett, of course, from WrestleMania 10. WrestleMania 10, that was a great match. For the Manias that I've been a fan for, favorite, probably Bryan and Triple H from WrestleMania 30. I know the Rock, Hogan, Austin promo kicked off that show, but opening match, Bryan and Triple H. That match was incredible. The fact that Bryan went over and it set the story for the rest of the night with Bryan being in the main event. So, I think Bryan and Triple H is probably my favorite opening WrestleMania match of all time. And least favorite? I mean, obviously, other than the obvious answer, you know, Sheamus and Daniel Bryan, which lasted 18 seconds of WrestleMania, which I know worked out for the better with Bryan getting over with the fucking yes chants and shit. That's fine. But in terms of an actual match I did not enjoy in the opening slot, probably Show Miz, The Miz and Big Show against Morrison and Truth, John Morrison and R-Truth from WrestleMania 26. I love that WrestleMania. I still think to this day it's a very underrated WrestleMania. But watching it back, and even at the time, like John and I were like, what the fuck was the point of that? Like, it was a 4-minute match. No one gave a shit. Morrison and Truth at that point were not really a tag team. They just kind of put them together for the sake of getting them on the WrestleMania card. Why Morrison was not in the Money in the Bank ladder match, I have no idea. But it was really just kind of a waste of a match. So probably that one. It wasn't a bad match, but it's like, who cares? It's 4 minutes long. Who the fuck could possibly care? Captain Sunshine, their question was, so Goldberg is winning the Universal Goldberg is winning the Universal Championship, isn't he? He's going to squash Kevin Owens and defend the title against Lesnar at WrestleMania for the main event, which I guess makes sense. I mean, it sucks for guys like KO to play second fiddle to nostalgia acts and celebrities again, but opening a WrestleMania with Jericho to warm up the crowd for Shaq, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, The Rock, and Jon Stewart would not be the worst thing in the world, right? That's funny. I mean, Owens and Jericho at this point, if it's not going to be for the Universal title, which, I mean, you said it yourself, he's going to squash Owens, Goldberg, that is. He's going to lose the belt to Goldberg at Fastlane. And I hate it just because, and I think Mark asked the question about it a little bit later on, which I'll address momentarily, that I think at this point it really does not make sense to do anything else but Goldberg squashing Owens. If he beats fucking Brock Lesnar, the most dominant superstar, far and away the most intimidating dominant superstar in WWE's past 5 years, in the past 5 years of WWE, and he beats him in like a minute and a half, why wouldn't he beat Owens in less than that for a guy who's been booked horribly as champion? You know what I mean? For the past, not horribly, but not as well as I think some of us would have liked in the past couple months. And I hate to say that, but it's really the only thing that makes sense. And Brock coming in to cost Goldberg the belt, there's that, but at the same time, Goldberg, he's facing Lesnar at Mania, and Lesnar's getting that title match if Goldberg wins the belt. So then Lesnar can get his hands on the championship if Goldberg beats Owens for the belt. So him coming down and costing Goldberg makes no sense. And if he does, I mean, it's cool that Owens retains the title, but it makes no sense from a storyline standpoint. Unless they outright say Brock Lesnar does not want the title, which isn't true, because he's said in the past that he does. More titles, more money, obviously, in storyline and kayfabe, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, but just if Jericho and Owens will not be for the Universal Championship, but that's at this point, which is a shame, they might as well just kick off the show. I mean, I'd much rather have Jericho and Owens kicking off the show than fucking another multi-man ladder match for the U.S. or Intercontinental title. Like, who the fuck could possibly care? Like, that to me is such a waste. I mean, I get that they want to get everyone on the show, but that's what the fucking Battle Royale's for. Like, give me a break. So no, I would be totally fine with Owens and Jericho kicking off the show at Mania. If they're not going to be in the Universal title match near the main event scene, they're going to be sandwiched in between all the other matches. You know, the fucking, you know, Rollins and H, if that's happening, which I heard it still is, between Big Show and Shaq, has been rumored, as you said. You know, all those other bigger matches on the card. So I would just have them kick off the show at that point if it's not for the Universal title, and instead it's for like the U.S. Championship instead. Mark S., his questions included, first one being, would you see the need for a second singles men's title to be added to NXT or the Cruiserweight division? Not the Cruiserweight division, at least not right now. That to me, which they only need one title. They have a show. They don't need another title. For NXT, I can see the argument, but at the same time, the roster's so small, I just don't see it being necessary. Like, I could see it being necessary for maybe like what Tyler Breeze used to be, or what like Roderick Strong and Ty Dillinger and Andrade Almas are right now, like the mid-card of NXT. But as they've always said, less is more. I think we need less championships. Like right now in the WWE, it makes sense because we have the brand split, so I get that, but we have so many fucking titles, and the more titles you have, the less they mean. So I like the fact we only have the NXT Championship as the sole singles men's title in that promotion, because it gives everyone something to kind of vie for, and it makes that belt that much more prestigious when you win it. So it's not really necessary. Maybe when they get a bigger roster, which they won't. It's an hour-long show, and they don't need a bigger roster because they only have an hour-long show. It's developmental. So I think just having the NXT Championship is enough, in my opinion. His second question, would Oney Larkin be a better fit on 205 Live, or should he stay in NXT? You know what? That's a great question, and I didn't know if he was under 200 or 205 or not, and he is. I looked it up on his Wikipedia page this morning, and it said that he's billed at 190 pounds. So they could have him in the Cruiserweight division if they wanted to, which I think he would be fucking great in. I mean, he's fine in NXT. He's not really doing anything. He's like the go-to enhancement talent, which is a shame. But he's had great matches with like Bobby Roode, with Andrade Almas. So I would call him up to the main roster, to be honest with you. I think Oney Larkin in the Cruiserweight division on 205 Live would be great. I didn't even really think about that, but that's a great idea. I would totally have Oney Larkin on 205 Live. I think we have enough talent as it is right now. He might even be lost in the shuffle up there, but at least he's getting like consistent television time as opposed to on NXT, where he's kind of like rarely on, every once in a few, in like a blue moon kind of thing. But he's a great talent though. I know RJ and I watched him at NXT Boston and NXT Lowell last year against Tommaso Ciampa and who was the other guy that he beat? I don't remember. He beat somebody else at NXT Boston. Who was it? Fucking Elias Sampson. And that was a great match too. Shockingly, but it was from Elias Sampson. But yeah, the guy deserves to get more television time in my opinion. His third question, would you have added a stipulation to the Nikki Bella versus Natalya match at Elimination Chamber? No, I mean, I could see the feud being escalated to that, having escalated to that point where you think they might need a stipulation, but let's remember, it's not like they've had a bunch of matches on TV. Like, this is the first singles match they've had in a while anyway. I don't know about, definitely not ever, but in recent memory on SmackDown since the brand split, I don't think they've faced off one-on-one. Maybe they have on SmackDown, but let's just say since the feud started, they have not faced off one-on-one. Or, they tried to do that one match a couple weeks back, but it didn't come to fruition. So I think for their initial encounter, a lot like Nikki Bella and Carmella, months ago, people were saying at No Mercy, why isn't it given a stipulation, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's fine the way it is. I think it's fine having a singles match. Maybe on SmackDown later on, you do a no disqualification match. So yeah, I think it's fine the way it is for right now for their initial encounter on pay-per-view. His next question, what match are you least interested in seeing at Elimination Chamber and why? Probably the tag team title matches, because as much as I love American Alpha and the Usos as heels, the rest of the tag team division right now is fucking depleted. Like, they have a lot of teams, they have a lot of decent teams, but none of them mean anything. Like, the Ascension fucking blow. It's like, I know they got the win on Tuesday night, but it's like, how could anyone possibly care about these guys when they just lose and lose and lose, and then just one day they give them a win like, oh, you're supposed to take these guys as threats to the titles on Sunday. Like, it doesn't work like that. Breezango, they're entertaining, but they have no credibility whatsoever. Same thing with the Vaudevillains and the fucking... Is that it? Who else is in the match? I don't even really remember. The Vaudevillains, Breezango, Heath Slater, and Ryan, who have done nothing since they dropped the titles 2 months ago. So it's really a very depleted division right now, which is a shame, but... probably that match. The rest of the matches I like even Nikki Bella and Natalya, which I think might be a dud. At least the feud has piqued my interest to an extent. The tag team title match really has no build. Other than American Alpha and kind of the Usos, I don't really care about anyone else in that match currently, so I think that's probably the match I'm least looking forward to. But still has promise. As a gauntlet match, as a gauntlet tag team title match, we saw something similar at MSG at the SmackDown House show right after Christmas, Jason and it was a good match, so... hopefully we see something similar on Sunday where it exceeds expectations and it ends up being entertaining. And his last question here, what did you think of the way Goldberg's promo was handled on Raw, that 2 matches involving him were arranged for 2 consecutive pay-per-views? Was it good, or should it have been handled differently, like one match organized before each pay-per-view? So in a nutshell, he's basically asking, should they have waited to announce Goldberg and Lesnar for Mania until after Fastlane? Yes, but at the same time, I understand they want to sell tickets for the show. Goldberg and Lesnar are 2 huge names. It's a marquee match of the pay-per-view. And especially if it's going to be their main event, which I fear that it will be for the Universal Championship, then they want to announce it early, regardless of whether right now there's a championship on the line or not. And it makes that match at Fastlane all the more important in storyline, because if Goldberg wins, that match is for the championship. So the stakes are kind of higher than they were before that match was announced. We all kind of figured the match was happening for Mania. It was pretty much already set in stone, but now it's official. So yeah, no, I do agree they could have waited, but now, for me anyway, it makes it all the more obvious that Goldberg's winning, because why would Lesnar cost him the championship now if he already knows that if Goldberg beats Owens, then he can beat Goldberg for the belt of Mania? Like, that to me is just dumb. So that being said, I guess they could have handled it differently, but I understand why they did it the way they did. At Sean Marcus, a couple questions here. First one being thoughts on Samoa Joe's Raw debut. Really well done. From last week's attack on Seth Rollins, obviously the injury notwithstanding, that was kind of unfortunate, obviously. To beating Roman Reigns on Raw this week in the main event, albeit not clean, but we can't always have it our way. To the contract signing at the start of the show, where his mic work was exceptional. Joe already, within 1 week, already feels like a big deal. And he should. The guy's great. He's an absolute monster. There's a bunch of monsters on that show. From Braun, Strowman, Lesnar, Goldberg, Nia Jax, and Samoa Joe. You have a bunch of believable monsters on Monday Night Raw right now. You have Big Show on the roster, too. Mark Henry. It's like the land of the giants on Monday Night Raw, essentially. But no, I thought it was really well done. If you told me 2 years ago, like when Joe, I think it was almost exactly 2 years ago, it was announced that Samoa Joe was leaving TNA, People were saying that, I didn't think he was going to head to WWE, honestly. I thought, that time had passed. He's not coming over. I wanted to see him in WWE. I just didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was likely. And he came over, kicked absolute all kinds of ass in NXT. And look where he's now. Look where he's at now, beating Roman Reigns in the main event of Monday Night Raw. Albeit not clean like Finn Balor, but not everyone can have a Finn Balor like a rival. So I thought it was great. If they can keep this up and maintain his momentum and make him out the killer, make him out to be the killer I know he can be, then he'll just be just all right on Monday Night Raw. He'll be just fine. His next question, can you see Goldberg squashing Kevin Owens at Fastlane? Like I said, yeah. I mean, that's basically what I expect to happen. I heard rumors that Vince that's what he wanted to do for the Fastlane main event, so that does not surprise me at all. And again, in storyline, it only makes sense. I mean, the guy beat fucking Brock Lesnar in a minute, including at the Rumble, too. He tossed him almost immediately, and he beat him in 90 seconds at fucking 96 seconds or something crazy like that at Survivor Series, and Owens is nowhere near being on Brock Lesnar's level right now. So it would not make sense unless there's like an infinite amount of interference in that match. Kevin Owens should not last more than 90 seconds, and it makes me sad just because Owens should not be really squashed as a world champion, but after squashing Lesnar, it really only makes sense. So, yeah, that's what I expect to happen, that's what I fear will happen, and that's kind of what has to happen at this point. They kind of painted themselves into a corner, and they booked themselves into a corner with this entire fucking angle, which makes me angry, but whatever. At Mr. Singleton 16, I heard rumors of the draft coming back after WrestleMania. If true, how would you want it to be done this year? Now, pretty much how it was done this year. I mean, the fucking lottery shit, that's so stupid. Like, imagine if they did that in actual sports, where, like, sports would compete for draft picks. Like, in real life, I mean, I wrote a whole article about this about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, about how the draft, originally, as much as I love the unpredictability of it, it was a fucking sham, because it made no sense. Like, Raw would get more draft picks than SmackDown. Like, there should be, like, they should call up NXT guys around the time of the draft, as they did last year. Maybe pick one guy from NXT for each brand, and then, like, try to do trades and shit like that. I feel like that would be just fine. So, to go back to the old, like, oh, who's going to be drafted? It's a random pick. Like, that's stupid. Like, if you want to be compared to legitimate sports, which is where the draft comes from anyway, then you can't do that kind of sports entertainment silliness where you're, like, acting like, oh, we don't know who's going to go where. Like, in storyline, John Cena, Randy Orton, AJ Styles could all go to Raw, and SmackDown could get fucking Titus O'Neil and Bo Dallas. Like, that's the way that it works in that universe. You know that it won't, but I don't know. I never really understood that. I mean, I enjoyed it as a fan, as a kid. When I first started watching the draft, it was one of the first Raw shows I ever watched in its entirety, and I loved it. But thinking back on it now, it was kind of a dumb concept. So if they bring back the draft, and they should this year, maybe not right after Mania, I would wait. I would hold off until at least June. It hasn't even been a full year since the brand extension started by April. But I would do it the way they should have done it originally, like it was done back in 2002, where they pick draft picks or they trade and shit like that. I feel like that would be a lot more realistic than the way they do it currently, or they used to do it anyway before the first brand extension died a death. His second question, would you like to see another throwback edition of Monday Night Raw? Do you think WWE should do more of these throughout the year? Yeah, I always enjoyed old school Raw. I don't want them to do them more every year. I think once every few years is fine. Like, I mean, Raw is going to be dull no matter what, but bringing back the legends every single week and kind of relying on those, old tropes and shit, it doesn't even work anymore. Like, there was a Raw about a year and a half ago, I think it was October of 2015, they trotted out the fucking Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, and I think somebody else, all on the same show. Shawn Michaels, Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker, and Ric Flair, all on the same show. The rating and Stone Cold Steve Austin, so 5 legends right there, really. 5 iconic superstars. And the rating barely moved. Like, if you can bring up 5 top-tier talent from WWE's all-time history, and it barely, ticks in the rating, that's when you know you've relied on that card way too many times. One too many times, so... but yeah, I like the old school Raws. I do enjoy them. I thought the past 3 in 2010, 2012? 2013 rather, and 2014 were all very good. So if they bring it back in the future, I would enjoy it. But they shouldn't do more throughout the year. I think less themed Raws, the better, really. I think they should just focus on the talent of today and tomorrow, as opposed to trotting people out from the past every single fucking week. to kind of boost the ratings, which doesn't really work anymore in 2017. And final 2 questions from my brother at RJ_Marceau. His question was, first question, favorite match that the guy that you rooted for lost? Great question. I was kind of racking my brain to think of like, is there anyone like that could be applied to, or any match that could be applied to? Maybe Punk and Lesnar from 2013 SummerSlam, but at the same time, I was okay with Lesnar winning because it kind of made sense. I wanted Punk to win, but Lesnar winning I wasn't mad at. The only match that comes to mind from recent memory would have to be AJ and Cena from the Rumble. I wasn't happy that AJ lost, but it's already my favorite match of 2017. I know it's fucking February 8th, but that match was incredible. Definitely one of my favorite matches in recent memory in years and years and years as a fan. So, despite the fact that AJ lost. So probably that one from recent memory. And a second question, your favorite elimination in an Elimination Chamber match? Another good question. Edge and Mysterio, one of my favorite chamber matches of all time. I think this Saturday, I'll be ranking my top 5 favorite Elimination Chamber matches. So stay tuned for that for the random video blog on Saturday. But yeah, the final elimination in that 2011 SmackDown World Heavyweight Championship Elimination Chamber match when Edge speared Rey Mysterio in midair was pretty cool. Predictable, but it was cool. I liked it. From 2010, which I know RJ knows all too well, as I do, Jericho and Undertaker when Taker was ready to put down Chris Jericho for the 1-2-3 and retain his title. Shawn Michaels comes up from under the grate and hits a sweet chin music on Taker out of nowhere. That's Shawn Michaels. Michael Cole on commentary, just freaking out. It was, again, it was pretty predictable, but I thought it was cool. So that one, and then Jericho, like, shockingly covering Shawn Michaels, or rather the Undertaker, to win the championship, and has that shocked expression on his face. Classic. And then finally, I know these were all the eliminations that ended the match, but they were the ones that came to my mind when you asked this question. And then finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. From 2002, Shawn Michaels and Triple H. It came down in the first ever Elimination Chamber match. It came down to the 2 old rivals, former friends, now foes. Shawn Michaels and Triple H battled it out. I think Shawn Michaels at one point kicked out of a pedigree, and he went for another one. He flipped over Triple H, followed up with a little sweet chin music. 1, 2, 3, place goes crazy. Wins his first world championship in almost 5 years in Madison Square Garden. Such a fucking amazing moment / match. So yeah, those are probably my top 3 favorite eliminations from recent years. Like I said, Jericho Taker from 2010, Shawn Michaels and Triple H from 2002, and Edge and Rey Mysterio from 2011. And that does it, guys. Like I said, a bit of a more condensed, edition episode here today, so I apologize for that in advance. Just the way that it works right now, just because I have school or class going on right after I film this, so I got to keep it short. But once I'm done, hopefully, at some point, like when I'm on break and shit, we can have longer episodes. But at any rate, guys, so if you want to send in a question for next week's episode, please do so. I appreciate it. Tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post. I usually put up on Tuesday nights. Also, like the page as well. And drop a comment down below with any questions you would like me to answer in next week's edition. So that being said, guys, as always, have an amazing week. Enjoy NXT tonight. Just enjoy your week in general. And I'll catch you guys down the road.